She wakes up covered in blood that isn't hers. Again. Lara has been blacking out for months, losing hours of her life, waking in places she doesn't remember going. But when a Nephilim executor tracks her to an abandoned cabin with orders to kill her for murders she can't remember committing, she discovers the horrifying truth. Something ancient is using her body as a weapon. She's been conscious the entire time, trapped behind her own eyes, screaming while a vengeful spirit wears her skin and spills blood in her name. And the being sent to execute her? He's the only one who believes she's still worth saving. Kale has completed thousands of executions without hesitation. 500 years of perfect obedience to infernal contracts. But the moment he touches Lara and feels her consciousness fighting behind the possession, everything changes. He makes a choice that will damn him forever. Instead of killing her, he'll fight heaven and hell itself to free her. 7 days. That's all they have before his contract expires, and eternal torture begins. 7 days to break into celestial holding, confront the souls of ancient betrayers, and find a way to evict a spirit that's waited 8 centuries for revenge. But as they run from divine enforcers and demonic executioners, as the connection between them deepens into something neither expected, Lara realizes the worst truth of all. The ancestor inside her is experiencing something it never planned for. It's watching a Nephilim choose. Suffering over causing harm. Watching someone sacrifice everything for another's freedom. And that might be the only thing powerful enough to break 800 years of rage. The question is whether they'll survive long enough to find out. Because some choices don't just risk your life. They risk your soul. And the price of freedom might be higher than either of them can pay. Lara woke up screaming. Not from a nightmare. From the cold. The kind of cold that sinks into bones and refuses to leave, like December wind trapped inside your chest. She was lying on frozen ground, pine needles digging into her cheek, and her hands were sticky with something that wasn't mud. Blood. Too much blood. Her breath came in ragged gasps as she pushed herself up, palms slipping on wet earth. The forest around her was silent. Wrong kind of silent. No birds, no rustling. Just her heartbeat hammering against her ribs like something trying to escape. She looked down at her hands. Red. Completely red. Dried under her fingernails, smeared up to her elbows, staining the sleeves of her bartender uniform that she'd been wearing when she left work 6 hours ago. Or was it 6 hours? Time felt slippery, like trying to hold water in cupped hands. This was the 4th time in 2 months. 4th time she'd woken up somewhere she didn't remember going, wearing evidence of something she couldn't remember doing. The 1st time she'd convinced herself she'd gotten drunk and fallen. The 2nd time she'd found a dead dog 3 feet from where she woke. The 3rd time, there'd been a man's wallet in her pocket. Name, Marcus Delgado. She'd looked him up online. Obituary posted the same day. Cause of death, animal attack. This time there was no body, just blood. Enough to know someone wasn't walking away from whatever happened here. Lara staggered to her feet, her legs trembling so violently she had to grab a tree trunk to stay upright. She needed to run. Get back to the cabin her father had left. Her before he died. The one he'd told her to go to if things ever got complicated. She'd thought he meant debt collectors. The gambling debts had destroyed their family, eaten through everything until there was nothing left but a rundown shack 2 hours outside the city and a daughter working double shifts to pay for his mistakes. She'd never imagined this kind of complicated. The kind where you wake up covered in someone else's blood, with no memory of how it got there. The cabin was a mile. Through the woods. She knew because she'd walked this path 100 times as a kid. Back when Dad was still alive and sober enough to take her fishing. Back when she still believed he loved her more than the cards. Her legs moved on autopilot, feet stumbling over roots she couldn't see in the pre-dawn darkness. The blood on her hands was starting to dry, pulling her skin tight. She wanted to scrub it off, wanted to peel her own skin away if it meant getting clean. But she knew it wouldn't help. Whatever was inside her, whatever was making her do these things, It wasn't something soap could wash away. The cabin came into view just as the first edge of sunlight broke over the mountains. It looked even worse than she remembered. Sagging porch, broken shutters, windows so dirty they looked like blind eyes. But it was shelter. It was away from whatever she'd done in those woods. Lara's hand was on the door handle when she felt it. That crawling sensation on the back of her neck. The animal. Awareness that something was watching. Something that didn't want to be seen. She spun around, heart leaping into her throat. He stood at the edge of the tree line, perfectly still. Tall enough that she had to tilt her head back to see his face, broad-shouldered in a way that made the forest feel smaller. He wore all black, which should have made him blend into the shadows, but somehow made him stand out more. Like darkness had decided to take human shape and walk around. But it was his eyes that stopped her breath completely. Amber. Burning amber. Like molten gold lit from behind. Not human eyes. Nothing human had eyes like that. Lara Mendez. His voice was low, rough, like he didn't use it often and wasn't sure he remembered how. You've been difficult to find. Her back hit the cabin door. Who are you? Wrong question. He took a step forward, and the air around him seemed to shimmer. Heat, radiating off his skin in waves despite the freezing temperature. You should be asking. What you are. I don't know what you're talking about. The lie tasted like ash in her mouth. Of course she knew. She'd known since the first blackout, since the first body, since she started waking up in places she'd never been with blood she couldn't explain. She just hadn't wanted to believe it. Yes, you do. Another step. Closer. Close enough now that she could see details. The sharp cut of his jaw. The tattoos crawling up his neck like living things. The way his hands stayed loose at his sides, even though everything about his posture screamed predator. You know you're killing people. You just don't know why. The words hit her like a physical blow. I'm not. I wouldn't. 3 people in 8 weeks, he continued, voice flat, emotionless. Marcus Delgado, stabbed 17 times. Jennifer Hassan, throat torn out. Robert Chen, burned alive. He paused, those amber eyes boring into her. You don't remember any of them, do you? Lara's knees buckled. She caught herself. Against the door, splinters digging into her palms. Jennifer Hassan. She'd seen that name. Seen the news report. They'd called it a wild animal attack. But the wallet in her pocket after the 3rd blackout, that had been Marcus. And Robert Chen. She'd woken up smelling like smoke. Clothes singed, hands blistered. Oh God. Oh God, oh God, oh God. I didn't, she whispered, but even she didn't believe it anymore. I don't remember. I black out. I lose time. I don't know what happens. I know. Something flickered across his face. Too fast to read. That's why I'm here. To turn me in? Her voice broke. To arrest me? His laugh was short, bitter. I'm not a cop, Lara. I'm an executor. He moved closer. So close now she could feel that unnatural heat coming off him in waves. Could see the way his tattoos moved under his skin, shifting like they were breathing. And I'm here to kill you. Kyle watched the girl's face drain of color, watched her fingers clutch at the splintered doorframe, like it was the only thing keeping her upright. He'd seen this reaction before. Terror. The kind that empties your lungs and turns your blood to ice water. The kind that made people beg. She didn't beg. Then do it. Her voice was raw, scraped clean of everything except exhaustion. If I killed those people, if I'm going to keep killing, then just do it. I can't live like this anymore. Something twisted in his chest. Something that felt disturbingly like the angelic side he'd spent 5 centuries trying to smother. He shoved it down, forced his expression to stay neutral. Executions were clean, simple. Target, contract, completion. No room for complications like empathy. But standing here, looking at Lara Mendez with her blood-crusted hands and hollow eyes, he felt the complication anyway. "It's not that simple," he heard himself say, and immediately regretted it. Since when did he explain himself to targets? Why not? She pushed away from the door, took a shaky step toward him. Brave or stupid, he couldn't tell which. "You said you're here to kill me. So kill me. I'm right here. I won't even fight back." The air between them heated, his power responding to emotion he wasn't supposed to feel. The tattoos on his arms writhed, contracts etched in infernal ink reminding him of his purpose. 500 years of perfect completion. 500 years of never questioning an order. Until now. "Because you're not doing it," he said, the words tasting like betrayal. Against his tongue. Not consciously. Lara's eyes widened. Hope flickered there, fragile and desperate. "What are you talking about?" Kyle stepped past her, pushed open the cabin door. It groaned on rusted hinges. Inside was exactly what he'd expected from his preliminary surveillance. Dust-covered furniture, boxes stacked in corners, the stale smell of abandonment. A place someone came to hide, not to live. "Come inside." He didn't look back to see if she followed. Didn't need to. He could. Feel her heartbeat, elevated but steadying. Could smell the blood on her skin mixing with pine sap and fear sweat. Enhanced senses were useful for tracking, less useful for maintaining emotional distance. She followed. Of course she did. Where else could she go? The cabin was freezing inside, somehow colder than the forest. Kyle moved through the space with practiced efficiency, checking windows, scanning for protective wards. Nothing. Just ordinary human defenses. Locks that wouldn't stop. Anything supernatural. Isolation that made her more vulnerable, not less. "Sit down," he said, gesturing to the moth-eaten couch. "Before you collapse." Lara didn't sit. She stood in the center of the room, arms wrapped around herself, shivering. "You said I'm not doing it consciously. What does that mean?" He turned to face her fully. In the dim light filtering through dirty windows, she looked younger than her file suggested. 25 years old according to the contract. Orphaned at 23. Working 2 jobs to pay off debts that weren't even hers. The kind of life that ground people down until there was nothing left but survival instinct. "It means something is using you," he said flatly. "During your blackouts. Something gets in, takes control, uses your body to kill." The silence that followed was absolute. He watched her process it. Watched denial war with relief, war with new horror across her face. "Possessed," she whispered. "You're saying I'm possessed." Ancestral parasitism. Kyle pulled off his jacket, tossed it over a chair. The movement made his tattoos visible, crawling up both arms in intricate patterns. Contracts, bindings, promises written in blood and sealed with soul debt. Rare, usually hereditary. Some ancestor of yours, dead but not gone, hitching a ride in your bloodline. Lara's legs finally gave out. She sank onto the couch, hands trembling as she stared at the dried blood coating her skin. "That's not possible. You woke up in the woods covered in blood you don't remember spilling." He kept his voice level, clinical. "Facts, not comfort. You have gaps in your memory that align perfectly with 3 murders. What about that seems possible? But why?" Her voice cracked. "Why would some dead ancestor want to kill random people?" "Not random." Kyle pulled out his phone, pulled up the files he'd compiled. Marcus Delgado, Jennifer Hassan, Robert Chen. They're all connected, all descendants of families involved in supernatural hunting 200 years ago. Your ancestor is settling old scores. He watched her face as understanding dawned. "My father," she breathed. "He left me this place. Told me to come here if things got complicated. He knew. He knew something was wrong with our family. Your father was a hunter." Cale put the phone away. "Inactive, but from one of the oldest bloodlines. When he died 6 months ago, whatever was dormant in you woke up." Lara looked up at him, and the desperation in Her eyes made his chest tighten again. That damned angelic side, recognizing innocence when he needed to see guilt. So I didn't kill anyone. Not really. It's this thing inside me. Legally, according to supernatural law, it doesn't matter. He forced himself to hold her gaze. Your body, your responsibility. The Infernal Council doesn't care about possession or free will. Only results. The Infernal Council. She repeated it like she was tasting foreign words. You work for demons. I am a demon, mostly. The admission felt heavier than it should. Nephilim, half angel, half demon. The contract says I execute you, or I face consequences that make death look merciful. He expected fear, expected her to run, to scream, to finally break. Instead, she straightened her spine, lifted her chin. How long do I have? The question caught him off guard. What? Before you have to kill me. Her hands clenched into fists on her lap. You said it's not that simple. You could have done it already, but you're talking to me instead. So how long? Kyle felt heat crawl up his neck. She was right. He should have completed the contract the moment he found her. Clean, quick, no conversation necessary. But something had stopped him. That moment when he'd touched her earlier while tracking her through the woods, brushed against her arm to confirm identity, and felt it. Memory fragment. Not hers. The ancestors'. 800 years of rage and betrayal compressed into a single touch. And underneath it, Lara's consciousness. Trapped and screaming. Aware, but helpless. He'd felt innocence die before. Had never let it stop him. But he'd never felt one still fighting while something else piloted their body like a puppet. I need to observe you, he said, the lie sliding out smooth. Truth was, he needed to figure out why every instinct he'd honed over 5 centuries was suddenly telling him to protect instead of execute. Confirm the possession. Document it. The council will want proof. Lara's laugh was sharp, broken. So I get to live until you're sure I deserve to die. How generous. I'm keeping you alive. He snapped, and the room temperature spiked. The tattoos on his arms glowed faint red, infernal power responding to anger. Be grateful. She stood up, faced him with blood-stained hands and eyes that had seen too much. I can't be grateful for a temporary stay of execution, but I can ask you one thing. What? When it happens again, when I black out and that thing takes over. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. Don't let me kill anyone else, whatever it takes, even if it means killing me right then. Promise me. Kyle stared at her, at this small, exhausted, terrified woman asking him to execute her if she became a threat, asking for death as mercy. And he felt something crack in the carefully maintained walls he'd built around his angelic side. I promise, he said, and knew with absolute certainty he'd just made his first mistake in 500 years. The words had barely left his mouth when Lara's eyes rolled back in her head. Her body went rigid, spine arching unnaturally. When her eyes opened again, they were completely black. Well, said a voice that wasn't hers, ancient and pleased. Isn't this interesting? Kale moved before thought, before the ancestral spirit fully settled into Lara's body. 5 centuries of combat training compressed into a single motion. He was across the room in a heartbeat, hand wrapped around her. Throat, slamming her back against the wall hard enough to crack the wood. Not hard enough to kill. Just hard enough to remind whatever was inside that this body was fragile. Let her go. His voice dropped to something subterranean, demonic. The tattoos on his arms blazed crimson, contracts singing with infernal power. The air in the cabin turned furnace hot. Lara's body laughed. The sound was wrong, layered with centuries of malice. Or what, Nephilim? You'll complete your contract early? We both know you won't. those black eyes fixed on him with ancient intelligence. I felt your hesitation, tasted it like honey on the tongue. Cale's grip tightened fractionally. I don't need to kill her to hurt you. But you do need this body intact, don't you? The spirit moved Lara's hand up, placed it over Cale's wrist. Her touch burned cold against his overheated skin. Otherwise, the council has no proof of possession, no evidence to justify breaking contract. And you, poor damned thing, get tortured for eternity for failing to execute a guilty target. Every word was correct. Cale felt rage simmer in his chest, the demonic side howling to just end this. Complete the contract, accept the consequences. But the angelic side, that weak, pathetic remnant he'd buried under 500 years of blood, whispered different words. She's innocent. She's fighting. You felt her consciousness trapped inside, screaming. What do you want? He ground out. The spirit smiled with Lara's mouth. It looked grotesque, too wide, revealing teeth that seemed sharper than they should be. What I've always wanted, justice, revenge, the blood of those who betrayed my family 800 years ago. The black eyes glittered. And this delicious little descendant is going to help me get it. The people you're killing didn't betray you. They're innocent. Innocent. The word came out as a snarl. Their ancestors burned my children alive, murdered my wife while she begged for mercy, hunted my bloodline to extinction because we refused to bow to their pathetic celestial laws. Lara's free hand came up, fingers tracing the edge of Cale's jaw. The touch made his skin crawl. Sound familiar, Nephilim? Or have you forgotten what it feels like to be hunted for existing? Cale released her throat, stepped back before the touch could linger. His hands were shaking. With fury or something else, he couldn't tell. The spirit rolled Lara's shoulders, testing the body like trying on new clothes. 8 more targets. 8 more descendants of the families that destroyed mine. Then I'll release this pretty little prison and move on to whatever afterlife will have me. Those black eyes pinned him. Or you can kill her now, and I'll just find another host, another innocent to puppet. Your choice, Executor. There's always a choice. But even as Cale said it, he felt the lie, felt the weight of the contract burning against his skin, infernal binding that demanded completion. Kill Lara. Mendes. That was the order. Possession or not, conscious guilt or not, the contract didn't care. Is there? The spirit moved Lara's body across the room with unnatural grace, picked up a shard of broken glass from the floor. Let me show you something. Before Cale could stop it, the spirit dragged the glass across Lara's forearm. Deep. Blood welled immediately, spilling down pale skin to drip on dusty floorboards. And then, from inside, Cale heard it, felt it through whatever connection he'd accidentally formed when he'd touched her earlier. Lara's consciousness, trapped behind black eyes, screaming. Not from pain, from horror. From feeling her body move without permission, feeling the cut happen, unable to stop it. She's aware, the spirit said conversationally, watching blood drip. The whole time. Every kill, every moment of control, she's right here. Watching. Helpless. The smile widened. Imagine that, Nephilim. Imagine being conscious while something else wears your skin. Uses your hands to murder. Forces you to wake covered in blood with no memory but the screaming in the back of your mind that knows what you've done even if you can't remember doing it. Cale's chest tightened. This was worse than he'd thought. Possession with full consciousness meant Lara was experiencing every second, every death, trapped in her own body like a prisoner in a cell made of flesh and bone. Why tell me this? His voice came out rougher than intended. Because you're going. To help me. The spirit set down the glass, moved to the sink, turned on water that ran brown before clearing, started washing Lara's blood-covered hands with disturbing domesticity. You're going to let me complete my revenge. All 8 targets. And in exchange, when I'm done, I'll leave her intact. Mind, soul, everything. She'll remember it all, of course. The trauma will destroy her, but she'll be alive. And if I refuse, kill her now and end this? The black eyes met his in the reflection of the cracked mirror above the sink. Then I'll make sure her last conscious moments are agony. I'll make her feel every second of dying, make her beg you to stop, make her hate you with her final breath. The spirit turned, leaned against the sink. Or worse, I'll jump to a new host. Maybe a child this time. Someone even more innocent. Someone you'll have to hunt down and execute while they cry and plead, and don't understand why the monster looks like an angel. Cale felt his control fracture. Heat erupted from his skin, the demonic side surging. The cabin windows cracked from thermal shock. Frost formed on the walls opposite him, temperature swinging wildly as angelic ice tried to counter infernal fire. Careful, the spirit warned. You're in her body. Hurt me. Hurt her. That stopped him cold. The power receded, leaving him shaking with the effort of control. 500 years, and he'd never struggled like this. Never felt his dual nature war so violently. Why? The question came out broken. Why her? Why this host? Because her father was the last surviving member of the Mendez bloodline, the family that led the hunt against mine. The spirit's expression turned distant, almost wistful. I've been waiting generations for the right descendant. Someone isolated. Someone already broken. Someone who wouldn't be missed. Lara's lips curved into something too cruel to be called a smile. Her father knew. Tried to warn her. Told her about the cabin. About staying away. From the city. About not drawing attention. But he died before he could explain why. And now here we are. He killed himself. Kyle remembered the file. Gerald Mendez. Suicide. 6 months ago. Overdose, they'd called it. But now he wondered. He tried to starve me out. The spirit's voice turned vicious. Thought if he died before I fully awakened, I'd die with him. Instead, the trauma of losing him just made it easier for me to surface in his darling daughter. The black eyes glittered with malice. His sacrifice was meaningless. Just like yours will be if you try to stop me. Cale's mind raced. 8 more targets. 8 more murders. And if he killed Lara now, the spirit would jump to someone else. An endless cycle of innocent hosts and bloody revenge. Unless... What if I could give you what you want without more killing? The words came out before he'd fully formed the plan. Improvisation born of desperation. The spirit tilted Lara's head, curious. Go on. The families you're hunting, they're protected by celestial law. Killing their descendants brings divine retribution. That's why the council wants Lara dead, to appease heaven before this escalates into full war. Kyle moved closer, carefully, like approaching a wild animal. But what if we went after the original betrayers instead? They're dead. 800 years dead. Dead, but not gone. Cale met those black eyes. Souls bound in celestial holding, awaiting final judgment. Untouchable by infernal law, but vulnerable to Nephilim who walk both sides. He let the implications hang. I can get you access. Let you confront the actual murderers. Give you the revenge you want without creating new innocent victims. The silence stretched. Kyle could feel Lara inside, that trapped consciousness suddenly alert, listening, hoping. You'd break celestial law for a human you're contracted to kill? The spirit's voice held genuine curiosity now. Why? Because 500 years of perfect execution had left him empty. Because he was tired of being a weapon. Because when he'd touched Lara and felt her trapped awareness, something long dead in his chest had shuddered back to painful life. Because I'm Nephilim, he said instead. And I'm tired of choosing sides. The spirit studied him for a long moment. Then Lara's body moved forward, close enough that he could smell blood and pine and something underneath that was purely her. Human, fragile, terrified but fighting. "Deal," the spirit whispered. "But if you betray me, Executor, I'll make sure she suffers for it." Then the black receded from Lara's eyes like ink in water. She gasped, stumbled. Kyle caught her automatically, felt her weight collapse against him as consciousness fully returned. What happened? Her voice was small, shaking. "I was here, and then I wasn't, and I felt—" She looked down at her forearm, at the cut still bleeding. "Oh God. It happened again. It's handled." Kyle kept his hands steady on her shoulders even though everything in him was screaming warnings. He'd just made a deal with a vengeful spirit, promised to break celestial law, put himself between an innocent and a contract that would torture him eternally if he failed to complete it. He'd just made his second mistake in 500 years, and he had a horrible feeling it wouldn't be his last. Lara couldn't stop shaking. She sat on the couch wrapped in a blanket Kale had found in one of the boxes, watching him move through the cabin with methodical precision, checking windows, drawing symbols on door frames with something that looked like ash but smelled like sulfur, creating wards, he'd called them, protection against other things that might come looking. Other things. As if the ancestral spirit puppeting her body wasn't enough. "Your arm." Kale appeared in front of her suddenly, startling her into dropping the water bottle he'd given her. It rolled across the floor. He didn't pick it up, just knelt, holding out a first aid kit. That looked too new to have been in this abandoned cabin. "You carry medical supplies." Her voice sounded hollow even to her own ears. "I carry a lot of things." He opened the kit, pulled out antiseptic and gauze. "Give me your arm." Lara hesitated. The cut on her forearm was still bleeding sluggishly, soaking into the blanket. She didn't remember getting it. Didn't remember anything after those black eyes had appeared in the mirror behind Kyle. Just fragments, sensations, the feeling of being shoved into a tiny corner of her own mind while something else moved her mouth, her hands, her face. She'd felt the glass cut into her skin, felt the pain, but couldn't scream, couldn't stop it. "I was awake." The words tumbled out as she extended her arm. "The whole time. I was right there, watching, and I couldn't do anything." Kale's hands paused on her wrist. His skin was impossibly hot, like touching a furnace, but it didn't burn. Just radiated steady heat that made her realize how cold she'd been. "I know." "How could you possibly know?" "Because I felt it." He uncapped the antiseptic, and his jaw tightened. "When I touched you earlier, tracking you through the woods, I accidentally created a connection. Felt your consciousness trapped behind the possession. Felt you screaming." The antiseptic hit the cut. Lara hissed through her teeth, tried to pull back, but Kale held firm. Not painful. Gentle, actually. Hands that could probably crush bone handling her arm like spun glass. "Is that why you're helping me?" She forced herself to meet those amber eyes. Up close, she could see they weren't solid gold. Flecks of red moved through them like embers. "Because you felt me in there? I'm not helping you." He wrapped gauze around her forearm with practiced efficiency. "I'm buying time to figure out how to complete my contract without creating more innocent victims." The words should have hurt. Should have reminded her that this being, this Nephilim who looked like a fallen angel and felt like walking fire, was still technically here to kill her. But Lara had gone numb to fear somewhere between waking up in blood and learning she was possessed. "The deal you made with it." She pulled her arm back once he'd finished bandaging. "What did you promise?" Kyle stood, began packing up the medical kit. "Access to Celestial Holding, where the original murderers are bound. You can do that?" "No." He turned away, moved to the kitchen. Started opening cabinets, checking for supplies. "But I know someone who can, and who owes me a favor that's about 800 years overdue." Lara watched him work, watched the way those tattoos moved under his skin, writhing patterns that seemed alive. "Contracts," he'd said, written in infernal ink. Promises that bound him to Hell's will whether he wanted them or not. "You're not what I expected a demon to be," she said quietly. He paused, hand on a cabinet door. What did you expect? I don't know. Horns? Red skin? Pitchfork? She pulled the blanket tighter. Not someone who carries first aid kits and makes deals to save innocent people. I'm not saving you. His voice came out harder. I'm saving myself from having to hunt down whatever host your ancestor jumps to next. Right. But she didn't believe him. Had seen the way his expression cracked when the spirit had cut her arm. Had felt the heat explode off his skin when it threatened to torture her. Whatever Cale told himself about cold efficiency and demonic duty, something in him had reacted to her suffering. Something that might be the angelic half he'd mentioned. How does it work? Lara asked, desperate to fill the silence. Being half angel, half demon. Don't they, cancel each other out? Cale's laugh was bitter. They war, constantly. Every decision, every emotion, every heartbeat. Angelic side wants mercy, compassion, righteousness. Demonic side wants chaos, pleasure, survival at any cost. He finally turned to face her. Imagine having two voices in your head that hate each other, arguing over every choice you make. Now imagine that for 500 years. Sounds exhausting. It is. He leaned against the counter, and for a moment he looked tired. Actually tired, like the weight of centuries was visible on his shoulders. Most Nephilim don't last a century before the internal war drives them insane. They either embrace one side completely or fragment into something that's neither angel nor demon, just broken. But you've lasted 500 years. I stopped listening to both sides. His eyes met hers. Started making choices based on contract obligations instead of internal morality. Easier that way. Cleaner. Until now. Lara pulled her knees up to her chest. Until you had to choose whether to kill an innocent person or break an infernal contract. Cale's expression shuddered. I haven't broken anything yet. I have 7 days to complete the execution or face consequences. This deal with your ancestor just bought us time. 7 days. 1 week. Lara felt the number settle in her chest like a stone. 7 days to find these ancient souls, to somehow satisfy a vengeful spirit's need for justice, to figure out how to evict something from her body that had been waiting generations to get in. 7 days before Cale had to choose between killing her or damning himself. What happens if you break the contract? She had to ask. You said consequences. What does that mean? Infernal consequences. Cale pushed away from the counter. Torture designed specifically for my dual nature. They'll use angelic light to burn the demonic side while infernal fire consumes the angelic half. Simultaneously. For eternity. His voice was matter-of-fact, like discussing weather. I'll be conscious the whole time, unable to die, unable to adapt, just endless agony that never dulls. Lara felt bile rise in her throat. That's barbaric. That's hell. He moved to the window, looked out at the forest. Contracts are sacred in the infernal hierarchy. Break one, and you prove you can't be trusted, can't be controlled, becomes an example to every other demon and Nephilim in service. Complete obedience or suffer. But you're still helping me. The realization made her chest ache. Even knowing that. I'm helping myself, he insisted, but it rang hollow now. If your ancestor jumps to another host, I'll have to hunt them down too. Potentially dozens of hosts over decades. This way is more efficient. Lara stood, letting the blanket fall. Walked over to where he stood by the window. Up close, she could see details she'd missed before. The way his jaw was too sharp, too perfect, like something carved rather than born. The faint scars on his neck that disappeared under his collar. The way he held himself rigidly, like constant vigilance, was the only thing keeping him together. You're lying, she said softly. To me or to yourself, I'm not sure. But you're lying. Cale's eyes snapped to hers, and she saw it. That flicker of something vulnerable behind the amber and red. Something that looked almost human. You don't know anything about me. I know you made a deal to save innocent people from being possessed. I know you're risking eternal torture to find another solution." She took a breath. "I know that when that thing cut my arm, you looked like you wanted to tear the world apart to stop it. That was anger at being manipulated." "No." Lara reached out slowly, carefully, and placed her hand over his on the windowsill. His skin was furnace hot, but she didn't pull away. That was someone who still has enough angelic side left to care when an innocent suffers. For a moment, Cale just stared at her hand on his. Then his fingers curled, just slightly, like he was fighting the urge to either pull away or hold on tighter. "You should hate me," he said quietly. "I'm here to execute you. That's my purpose, my contract. Everything I'm doing is just delaying the inevitable. Maybe." Lara's throat tightened. "Or maybe you're fighting for a third option. Something that isn't kill or be tortured. Something that saves us both. There is no third option. Then we make one." She squeezed his hand, felt the heat pulse under her palm. "You said Nephilim walk both sides. So walk between them. Find the space where angelic mercy and demonic survival meet, where we both get to live." Cale turned his head, looked at her fully. This close, she could see the exhaustion in his eyes. The weight of 500 years of choosing neither side, of being weapon instead of person, of completing contracts while suffocating whatever remained of his soul. "Why do you care if I survive?" His voice was barely above a whisper. "You should be focused on saving yourself. Because you're the only thing standing between me and that spirit taking over permanently." Lara's eyes stung. "Because in the last 6 hours, you've shown me more humanity than anyone has in 6 months. Because I'm selfish and terrified and I need you." Something in Cale's expression cracked. The rigid control, the cold efficiency, the pretense that he was just a weapon following orders. It all fractured, and underneath was something raw and aching. "I don't know how to save us both," he admitted. "Every scenario ends with one of us destroyed. Then we figure it out together." Lara's hand trembled on his. 7 days. You said we have 7 days, so let's use them. Let's find your contact, access, those souls, satisfy the spirit's revenge. And maybe, somewhere in there, we find the third option that keeps us both breathing." Cale studied her for a long moment. Then slowly, his hand turned under hers, palm to palm. His fingers threaded through hers, grip gentle despite the strength she could feel coiled in those muscles. 7 days, he repeated. "And if we fail?" Lara met his eyes and saw her own fear reflected there. Her own desperate hope that maybe, impossibly, they could both survive this. "Then at least we tried," she whispered. Outside, thunder rumbled, storm rolling in fast, turning the sky black. And in the forest beyond the cabin, something howled. Not wolf, not human, something else entirely. Cale's grip on her hand tightened. "They're coming." "Who?" "Everyone." His eyes blazed brighter, power rising to the surface. "Heaven knows I hesitated on the contract. Hell knows I made an unauthorized deal. And every supernatural creature for 50 miles just felt the surge of energy from the wards I placed." He pulled her away from the window. "We need to leave, now." "Leave? But you just spent an hour making this place safe." "Safe from spirits and minor demons." Cale was already moving, grabbing his jacket, checking weapons she hadn't noticed before. "Not from celestial executioners or infernal enforcers." He tossed her a leather jacket that looked 3 sizes too big. "Put that on. It has protective runes. Won't stop everything, but it might keep you alive long enough for me to get us out." Lara's hands shook as she pulled on the jacket. It smelled like smoke and something spicy. Smelled like him. "Where are we going?" Cale moved to the door, placed his palm against it. The wood glowed red, then white, then shattered into ash, creating an exit that bypassed his own wards. He turned back to her, eyes blazing in the darkness, and for the first time since she'd met him, Lara saw something other than control in his expression. She saw fear. Somewhere even heaven and hell won't follow. He held out his hand. "Trust me." Lara looked at that outstretched hand, at the tattoos writhing over his skin, at the impossible choice of trusting a creature literally contracted to kill her. Then she heard it. Wings. Dozens of them. Beating in synchronized rhythm above the cabin. And voices, speaking in languages that hurt her ears to hear. She grabbed his hand. The world exploded into heat and light, and somewhere in the chaos, Lara felt the spirit inside her wake up and laugh. The world reformed in pieces. Floor first, cold concrete under Lara's knees. Then walls, industrial brick covered in graffiti and water stains. Then sound, the distant hum of traffic, the drip of water somewhere in the darkness. Lara's stomach heaved. She barely managed to turn her head before vomiting, body rejecting whatever Cale had done to move them through space, like reality was just a suggestion. Breathe. His hand was on her back, steady pressure, between her shoulder blades. First time is always rough. Your body thinks it died and came back wrong. Did it? She gasped between heaves. Die? Technically, yes, for about 3 seconds. He moved away, and she heard him walking, boots echoing in the empty space. But you're fine now. Mostly. Lara wiped her mouth with a shaking hand, forced herself to sit back. They were in some kind of warehouse, abandoned by the look of it. Broken windows high up near the ceiling let in weak dawn light. Crates stacked in corners, covered in tarps that looked like they hadn't been moved in years. "Where are we?" Her voice came out hoarse. "Detroit, Industrial District. This building is owned by a shell corporation that's owned by another shell corporation that technically doesn't exist." Cale was checking his phone, frowning at the screen. Off the grid. Not even satellite coverage reaches inside these walls. We have maybe 12 hours before heaven figures out where we went. 12 hours. Lara pushed herself to her feet, legs wobbling. The leather jacket he'd given her was too warm now, making sweat stick her shirt to her skin. Then what? Then we're gone again. He pocketed the phone, moved to one of the crates, pulled off the tarp to reveal supplies. Water bottles, food, medical equipment, weapons that made Lara's chest tighten. "I keep safe houses in 17 cities. We can keep moving until we find Mikhail." "Mikhail? My contact. The one who can access Celestial." Holding. Kyle pulled out 2 water bottles, tossed her one. She caught it reflexively. He's a seraph. Fallen, but still connected enough to heaven's systems to slip past security. Lara uncapped the water, drank half of it in desperate gulps. The cool liquid helped settle her stomach. A fallen angel is going to help us break into heaven's prison system. Mikhail owes me. Kyle's expression went distant. I saved his life 300 years ago. Hid him from celestial executioners when he fell. He swore a blood debt. This is me calling it in. Will he agree? He doesn't have a choice. Blood debts are binding. But something in Cale's voice suggested it wasn't that simple. The problem is finding him. He moves constantly. Never stays anywhere longer than a few days. Paranoid that heaven will finally track him down. Lara set down the water bottle, wrapped her arms around herself. The warehouse felt too big, too empty. Like any moment something could drop through those broken windows or materialize from the shadows. Those things outside the cabin. The wings. What were they? Celestial enforcers. Heaven's executioners. Cale pulled off his own jacket, and Lara saw more tattoos underneath. They covered his arms, his shoulders, disappearing under his shirt in patterns that hurt to look at directly. They were coming for me. For breaking protocol by hesitating on a contract. Because of me. Because I made a choice. He met her eyes. Don't take responsibility for my decisions. I knew the risks. But Lara could see the tension in his shoulders. The way his hands kept flexing like he wanted to hit something. He'd risked everything to buy them time. Had literally pulled her through space while angels descended, and now they were fugitives running from both heaven and hell. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "For all of this. For being the target that made you question orders. For dragging you into this mess. You didn't drag me anywhere." Cale moved closer, and that unnatural heat radiated off him again. "I made the call. I felt your consciousness trapped behind that possession, and I couldn't walk away. That's on me, not you. Why couldn't you?" The question came out barely a whisper. 500 years of perfect execution. Why couldn't you just complete the contract and move on? Cale was silent for a long moment, his amber eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Because for 500 years, I've been choosing between angelic mercy and demonic efficiency. Always one or the other, never both." He took another step closer. "And then I touched you, and felt something I haven't felt in centuries." "What?" "Hope." The word sounded like a confession, like something he shouldn't admit. That maybe there's a third option. That maybe I don't have to be weapon or monster. That maybe I can be something else. Lara's heart hammered against her ribs. They were standing too close now. Close enough that she could feel the heat pulsing off his skin, could see the way those tattoos moved with each breath. Close enough that she could reach out and touch him if she was brave enough. And if there isn't? Her voice shook. If after 7 days there's no third option? If one of us has to die? Then at least I tried. Cale's hand came up slowly, carefully, and brushed a strand of hair from her face. His fingers were burning hot but gentle. At least I chose to fight for something instead of just following orders. The touch sent electricity down her spine. Lara knew she should step back, should put distance between herself and the Nephilim who was technically still her executioner. But she couldn't move, couldn't break whatever was building in the space between them. "Kyle," she started, but never finished. Her vision went black. Not gradually. Instantly. Like someone flipped a switch. 1 second she was standing in the warehouse, feeling Cale's touch on her face. The next, she was somewhere else. Somewhere. Dark and cold and wrong. She was still in her body, could feel her arms, her legs, her racing heart. But she couldn't control anything, couldn't move, couldn't speak. Just watch through her own eyes as the world tilted and reformed. The ancestor. It was happening again. Lara felt her mouth move, felt words come out in her voice but not her words. "Well, this is cozy. Running away together. How romantic." No, please not now. She felt her body turn, saw Cale's expression shift from surprise to cold fury. Saw him take a step back, putting distance between them, hand moving to a weapon at his belt she hadn't noticed before. Let her go. His voice was pure ice now. No warmth, no gentleness. Just the executor speaking to a target. "But we're having such a nice conversation." Lara felt her lips curve into a smile she didn't make. "Besides, I wanted to check on our deal. Make sure you're not having second thoughts about accessing Celestial Holding." Lara screamed inside her own head. Fought against the presence controlling her limbs. But it was like pushing against a wall of stone. Immovable. Absolute. "I keep my word." Cale's hand stayed on the weapon. "Do you?" "Depends." Her body moved closer to him. Movements predatory. "Wrong. You've been getting awfully attached to my little host. Starting to care whether she lives or dies. That complicates things. My feelings don't affect the deal. Don't they?" The ancestor made her reach out, touch Cale's chest. Lara felt his heat, felt his heart racing under her palm, but couldn't pull back, couldn't stop it. Because if you care about her, you'll hesitate. And if you hesitate, you'll fail. And if you fail, the council tortures you for eternity while I jump to a new host and start over. Inside, trapped behind her own eyes, Lara felt tears she couldn't cry. Felt horror at what her hand was doing, touching him without permission, using intimacy as a weapon. Stop. Please stop. Don't use me like this. Remove your hand. Kale's voice was deadly quiet. Or I'll remove it for you. You won't. The ancestor pressed closer, and Lara felt her body against his, felt the awful wrongness of intimacy without consent. Because you'd have to hurt her to hurt me, and you've already proven you can't do that. Kale's eyes blazed, power rising. The temperature in the warehouse spiked, heat rolling off him in waves. You're testing my limits. That's a mistake. I'm making sure you understand the stakes. The ancestor made her tilt her head, studying him. You're falling for her. I can feel it through this bond you accidentally created. Feel your emotions bleeding through every time you touch her. Compassion, protectiveness, desire. No. Lara's internal scream was silent. Don't say that. Don't ruin this. Those feelings make you weak, the ancestor continued. Make you vulnerable. Make you stupid. So I'm reminding you what's real. This body isn't your salvation. It's not your chance at redemption. It's just a prison for a girl who's been dead since the moment her father failed to protect her bloodline. Kyle's hand shot out, grabbed her wrist. His grip was iron, and Lara felt pain spike through her arm. But she also felt something else. That connection he'd mentioned. Emotions bleeding through touch. And what she felt from him was rage mixed with anguish. She's not dead. His words came through clenched teeth. And I will find a way to save her that doesn't involve your revenge tour. The ancestor laughed, and the sound coming from Lara's throat made her sick. Then you're a fool. There is no saving her. Not without letting me finish what I started. 8 souls for 8 murders. That's the price of her freedom. There's always another price. Kyle released her wrist, stepped back. I just have to find it. You have 6 days. The ancestor made her smile again. Tick-tock, executor. Then, as suddenly as it had started, control snapped back. Lara gasped, stumbled, would have fallen if Kale hadn't caught her. His arms wrapped around her, steadying her, and she grabbed onto him like a lifeline. I'm sorry. The words tumbled out in a rush. I'm so sorry. I couldn't stop it. I tried to pull back. I know. His voice was rough, but his arms were gentle. I know you tried. I felt it. Lara was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. She'd been conscious the entire time, had felt every word the ancestor spoke with her mouth, every movement it made with her body, every touch it forced, had felt herself being used like a puppet while screaming uselessly behind her own eyes. It touched you. She pressed her face against his chest, unable to look at him. Used me to touch you without permission. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Stop. Kyle's hand came up, cupped the back of her head. You didn't do anything wrong. That thing did, not you. But it was my body, my hands, Her voice broke. What if it does something worse next time? What if it uses me to hurt you? Or hurt someone else? What if I can't stop it? Then I'll stop it. His grip tightened, protective. That's my job. Keeping you safe from it. Keeping everyone safe from it. Until we find another way. Lara wanted to believe him. Wanted to trust that 6 days was enough time to find Mikhail, access Celestial Holding, satisfy an 800-year-old vendetta, and somehow evict a parasitic spirit from her body. But the rational part of her brain, the part that had survived 6 months of blackouts and murders, knew the truth. They were running out of time, out of options, out of miracles. Kyle. She pulled back enough to look at him. His eyes were blazing now, power barely contained. If we can't find another way, if it comes down to completing the contract or being tortured forever, promise me you'll do it. No. Promise me you'll kill me before you let that happen. Her hands fisted in his shirt. I can't live like this. Can't be used like this. I'd rather die than keep being this. Things, puppet. I said no. His voice turned hard. I'm not giving up on you with 6 days left. I'm not making that promise. But, no. He pulled her closer, and she felt his heart racing, felt the conflict warring inside him through that accidental bond. You asked me to find a third option, so let me find it. Let me try. And if we fail, his jaw clenched. If we fail, then we fail together. Lara stared at him, at this impossible being who was choosing damnation over giving up on her, who was risking everything for someone he'd known less than a day, who looked at her like she was worth saving even when she didn't believe it herself. Why? The question came out broken. Why are you doing this? Really? Cale was quiet for a moment. Then his hand came up, touched her face again, palm against her cheek, thumb brushing away tears she didn't know she'd shed. Because when I touched you and felt your consciousness trapped inside, screaming but not giving up, still fighting even. Though you were helpless, his voice dropped to something raw. I recognized it, that kind of trapped desperation, that feeling of being conscious while something else controls you. You've been possessed? I've been bound by infernal contracts for 500 years. His eyes met hers. Conscious while my demonic side completes executions, my angelic side protests. Aware while I do things that destroy whatever humanity I have left. Helpless to stop because the contracts override free will. Understanding crashed over her. He wasn't just trying to save her. He was trying to save himself. Trying to prove that bound, controlled, trapped beings could still fight back. Could still choose. Could still break free. So we're both prisoners, she whispered. Yeah. His thumb traced her cheekbone. But maybe we can free each other. Outside, thunder rolled. The storm that had chased them from the cabin had followed to Detroit. Rain began hammering the warehouse roof, turning the world beyond, the walls into liquid sound. And somewhere in that storm, Lara felt it. The ancestor, still there, still watching, waiting for the next moment of weakness, the next opportunity to seize control and remind her that freedom was an illusion. 6 days. They had 6 days to prove it wasn't. They found Mikhail in a church. Not a functional one. The kind that had been abandoned decades ago, left to rot in a neighborhood where even drug dealers didn't venture after dark. Stained glass windows shattered. Pews overturned. Altar desecrated with graffiti that made Lara's eyes hurt to read. Perfect hiding place for a fallen angel. Kyle had tracked him through 3 cities over 4 days. 4 days of constant movement, sleeping in shifts. Lara's body exhausted, but her mind refusing rest. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt the ancestor lurking, waiting. Twice more it had surfaced, brief moments of lost control, where she'd watched helplessly as it spoke through her mouth. Threats, reminders, promises of what would happen if Cale failed. Now they stood in the ruined sanctuary, and Lara felt something in the air that made her skin crawl. Pressure, like the atmosphere before a lightning strike. He's here, Cale said quietly. His hand stayed on her lower back, protective gesture that had become habit over the last 4 days. Stay close. Mikhail is unpredictable when cornered. Cornered? A voice echoed from somewhere above them. I'm not the one running from both heaven and hell. Executor? Lara looked up. A figure perched on what remained of the choir balcony, silhouetted against broken windows. Then he dropped, fell 3 stories, and landed without sound. Graceful, predatory. Mikhail was beautiful in the way natural disasters were beautiful. White blonde hair, ice blue eyes, features so perfect they looked carved from marble. He wore clothes that had been expensive once, but were now stained and torn. And on his back, visible through the ripped shirt, were scars. Parallel lines where wings had been. Removed, not lost. Lara had learned the difference over 4 days of Cale explaining celestial hierarchy. Fallen angels lost their wings through sin. Seraphim who had their wings removed had committed something worse. treason against heaven itself. Mikhail. Kale's voice was carefully neutral. I'm calling in the blood debt. The seraph's eyes narrowed. After 300 years of silence, you show up with a human marked for execution and celestial. Enforcers on your tail. He moved closer, circling them like a wolf. You're asking me to commit suicide. I'm asking you to honor your word. My word was given when I still had something to lose. Mikhail stopped in front of them, studied Lara with clinical interest. Now I'm just trying to survive long enough to see heaven fall. Why would I risk that for your contracted target? Because she's innocent. Kyle shifted, putting himself slightly between Lara and Mikhail. Possessed by an ancestral spirit, the kills aren't hers. Possession doesn't matter to the council. You know that. Mikhail's gaze flicked to Kyle. You also know that breaking contract for an innocent makes you weak, compromised, exactly the kind of Nephilim that needs to be eliminated before you become a liability. Lara felt Kyle tense beside her, felt heat rise off his skin, power responding to threat. Are you refusing the blood debt? I'm questioning your judgment. Mikhail tilted his head. You've completed thousands of contracts without hesitation. What makes this girl different? The question hung in the air. Lara found herself holding her breath, waiting for Kyle's answer. They'd spent 4 days together in close quarters, had talked about everything and nothing, had shared stories about their pasts, their fears, their dreams of lives they'd never get to live, had touched more than necessary, hands finding each other in the darkness, seeking comfort and connection. But they'd never talked about what was building between them, never acknowledged the way Kyle looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching, the way her heart raced when his hand found hers, the way 4 days had somehow created something that felt like it had existed for centuries. She reminds me why I chose to save you instead of completing that execution 300 years ago, Kyle said finally. She reminds me that mercy isn't weakness, that choosing to protect instead of destroy isn't compromise. It's evolution. Mikhail's expression flickered. Something that might have been pain. Mercy got my wings removed. Protection got everyone I loved killed. Evolution is just a pretty word for becoming a target. You're still alive, Kyle countered. Because I chose mercy over orders. Because I hid you instead of turning you in. Because sometimes the right choice is the one that gets you in trouble. And look where that got you. Mikhail gestured around the ruined church. Running, hiding, burning. Through safe houses while heaven sends enforcers and hell sharpens your torture instruments. He moved closer to Lara, studied her face. Is she worth it? Worth eternal suffering? Worth throwing away 500 years of perfect service? Lara wanted to shrink back from that ice-blue gaze, but she forced herself to hold still, to meet his eyes even though everything in her screamed to run. I don't know, she said honestly. I don't know if I'm worth any of this. All I know is that I'm trapped. In my own body with something that uses me to kill people. And Kyle is the only person who's ever looked at me and seen someone worth saving instead of just another victim. Pretty speech. But Mikhail's voice had lost some of its edge. Doesn't change facts. Accessing celestial holding means breaking into heaven's maximum security prison. Getting past wards designed by archangels. Confronting souls that have been bound for 800 years. He looked at Kale. Even if I wanted to help, it's impossible. Nothing's impossible. Kale pulled something from his pocket. A blade, small enough to fit in his palm, covered in runes that glowed faintly. I have a seraphim blade, forged in celestial fire, quenched in angel blood, opens any lock in heaven or hell. Mikhail stared at the blade. That's not possible. Those were destroyed after the rebellion. Most of them were. Kyle's grip tightened on the weapon. This one survived because the seraph who carried it hid it before she died. Hid it in the one place nobody would look. Inside a Nephilim soul. Inside your soul. Understanding dawned on Mikhail's face. You've been carrying it for 500 years, waiting for the right moment to use it. Kale held out the blade. This is that moment. This is what I'm offering for the blood debt. Access to celestial holding using a weapon that shouldn't exist. One chance to right an ancient wrong. One chance to prove that the system can be beaten. Lara watched Mikhail's expression shift. Saw hunger there, desperate and raw. The chance to strike back at heaven. To prove that fallen angels weren't powerless. To do something that mattered after 300 years of hiding. And when heaven finds out, Mikhail's voice was quiet now. When they trace the break-in back to us, then we face it together. Kale's hand found Lara's, threaded their fingers. 3 outcasts against the world. Better odds than I've had in centuries. Mikhail was silent for a long moment. Then he laughed, sharp and bitter. You've gone insane. Both sides of you finally cracked under the weight of all those contracts. That's the only explanation. Maybe. Kale didn't deny it. Or maybe I finally remembered what it felt like to choose instead of obey. To fight for something instead of just surviving. He squeezed Lara's hand. Help us. Honor the blood debt. And when this is over, when we've either succeeded or failed spectacularly, you'll be free. No more debt. No more obligation. Just your life, whatever you choose to do with it. My life ended 300 years ago when they ripped off my wings. No. Kale's voice was firm. Your old life ended. This is a chance at a new one. One where you're not just hiding, where you're fighting back. Lara felt the moment shift, felt possibility crystallize in the air between them. Mikhail wanted to say yes, wanted to believe that fighting back mattered, that fallen angels and compromised Nephilim and possessed humans could actually make a difference. The spirit inside her, Mikhail said finally, looking at Lara. What's its name? Lara opened her mouth to say she didn't know, but something else came out. Something that wasn't her voice, but wasn't entirely the ancestor either. A blend, a merging. Ezekiel. The name tasted like ash and fury. My name was Ezekiel before they burned my family and erased my existence from history. Kale's hand tightened on hers. Lara? But she couldn't respond. Couldn't explain that. This wasn't full possession. Just the ancestor surfacing enough to speak, to be heard, while she remained conscious. Aware. Trapped in a space between control and helplessness. Ezekiel the betrayer. Mikhail breathed. You're the one who tried to expose the Celestial Council's corruption, who found evidence that they'd been manipulating human wars for profit. I found truth. The words came from Lara's mouth but weren't hers. And they destroyed me for it. Killed my wife, my children, my entire bloodline. Except one. One daughter who survived and carried my rage forward through generations. The presence in her chest pulsed. Until now. Until Lara. Until the moment I could finally make them pay. The souls you want to confront. Mikhail said slowly. They're not just the hunters who killed your family. They're the council members who ordered it. 7 council members, and 1 high-ranking seraph who carried out the executions personally. Ezekiel's rage bled through Lara's skin, making her burn. 8 souls who thought they could erase their crimes by erasing my existence. Kale was staring at Lara with something like horror. You didn't tell me you were going after council members. That's not revenge. That's declaration of war. Does it matter? Ezekiel challenged. They're already hunting you for hesitating, already torturing the instruments that will be used on you when time runs out. This just accelerates the timeline. It matters because confronting council members means facing the most protected souls in celestial holding. Mikhail's voice was tight. It means breaking through wards designed to withstand archangels. It means triggering every alarm in heaven. Scared, fallen one? Ezekiel mocked. Afraid to face the powers that mutilated you and left you for dead? Mikhail's eyes flashed. I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of failing. Of wasting the only chance we'll get because you want revenge more than justice. Revenge is justice. The words came out venomous. And if you won't help me get it, I'll find another way, another host, another... Stop. Lara's voice broke through, fighting for control. Stop using my mouth. Stop using my anger. Just stop. The presence receded slightly. Not gone. Just pulled back enough for Lara to breathe, to think, to speak with her own words. I'm sorry, she gasped. I didn't know. Didn't know it was council members. Didn't know you were Ezekiel the betrayer. She looked at Cale, saw the conflict warring in his eyes. If this is too much, if this puts you in more danger than you already are, I'll understand. Cale studied her face, searching for something. Then his hand came up, cupped her cheek, thumb brushing over skin that still burned with Ezekiel's rage. Are you in there? He asked quietly. The real you, not the ancestor, not the possession, just Lara. I'm here. Her voice cracked. I'm always here, watching, screaming, fighting. Then that's all that matters. He looked at Mikhail. We're doing this, with or without you. But it would be easier with a seraph who knows celestial architecture. Mikhail closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something had changed, something that looked almost like hope. 300 years I've been waiting for a reason to stop hiding, he said quietly. Guess this is it. He held out his hand. Give me the blade. I'll need to attune to it before we can use it for entry. Kyle placed the seraphim blade in Mikhail's palm. The moment metal touched skin, light erupted. Blinding white gold that made Lara shield her eyes. When she could see again, Mikhail's scars were glowing. The places where wings had been removed, lit from within. It remembers me, Mikhail whispered. Remembers what I was before the fall. Can you use it? I can try. Mikhail looked at them both. But once we do this, there's no going back. Heaven will know. Hell will know. Every supernatural creature in existence will know that someone broke into Celestial Holding and confronted council members. His ice-blue eyes were serious. We'll be hunted forever. I'm already hunted forever, Lara said. At least this way, I'm fighting back. Cale's hand found hers again. When do we go? Tonight. Mikhail's grip on the blade tightened. Before I lose my nerve. Before heaven mobilizes more enforcers. Before that spirit decides to take full control and use Lara to kill us both. Inside her chest, Lara felt Ezekiel stir. Felt anticipation, rage, and something that might have been fear. 800 years of waiting, and finally, justice, or revenge, or whatever existed in the space between. Tonight, she agreed. And somewhere in heaven, alarm bells began to ring. Celestial Holding existed between dimensions. Not heaven, not earth. Just a space carved from reality, where the worst souls in existence waited for judgment that might never come. Lara felt the transition like being turned inside out, every nerve screaming, as Mikhail guided them through barriers that weren't meant to be crossed by living beings. When the world reformed, they stood in a corridor of pure white light. No walls, no ceiling, just endless brightness that somehow didn't hurt to look at. And doors, hundreds of them, stretching into infinity, each one marked with symbols that writhed and changed. Council members are kept in the deepest sections, Mikhail whispered. His voice echoed wrong here, like sound couldn't decide which direction to travel. Past the minor offenders, past the fallen, past even the Nephilim who committed genocide. He held up the seraphim blade, and it pulsed with light that matched the corridor. Follow me. Don't touch anything. Don't speak unless spoken to. And whatever you do, don't look directly at the souls behind the doors. Why not? Lara asked, and immediately regretted it as something behind the nearest door pressed against the barrier, She caught a glimpse of too many eyes, too many mouths. Something that had been an angel once, but had twisted into geometry that shouldn't exist. Because some souls have been here so long they've forgotten what shape they're supposed to be, Cale said quietly. His hand stayed on her lower back, grounding her. Looking at them too long can make you forget too. They moved through the corridor in silence. Every step felt heavy, like walking through water. Lara kept her eyes forward, but peripheral vision caught movement behind doors. Shadows that reached, lights that pulsed, things that whispered in languages that made her skull ache. Inside her chest, Ezekiel was completely silent. Not sleeping, not hiding. Just waiting with anticipation so intense it made Lara's heart race. Here. Mikhail stopped in front of a door that looked identical to all the others. Except the symbols on this one weren't writhing. They were screaming. Silent screaming that Lara could feel in her bones. First council member. Raphael the Enforcer. He's the one who personally executed your family. Ezekiel. Lara felt control slip. Not violently, almost gently. Ezekiel rising to the surface like a wave. And she was pulled under. Consciousness submerged but still aware. Still watching through her own eyes as her hand reached out and touched the door. It opened. The space beyond wasn't a cell. It was emptiness. Pure void. And in the center, suspended in nothing, was a figure wrapped in chains of light so bright they left after images. An angel. Or what? Remained of one. Wings intact but frozen mid-flight, face locked in an expression of eternal agony. Raphael. Ezekiel's voice came from Lara's throat, but it resonated with power that made the void ripple. 800 years. Do you even remember what you did? The angel's eyes opened. Pure white, no pupil, no iris. Just light. Ezekiel. The name came out cracked, broken. Impossible. You were destroyed. My body was destroyed. My bloodline survived. Ezekiel moved Lara's body forward into the void. Lara felt vertigo. Felt like she was falling up and down simultaneously. But Ezekiel kept her walking. And now I'm here, to make you face what you did. I followed orders. But there was something in the angel's voice. Doubt. Guilt. Regret festering for centuries. The council commanded. I obeyed. You burned my children alive while they screamed for mercy. Ezekiel's rage pulsed through Lara's body, making her skin burn. You held my wife down and made me watch as you tore out her wings. You erased my name from every record, every memory, every prayer. The void shook, and you called it justice. Raphael's chains rattled. The council said you were exposing secrets that would destroy the celestial hierarchy, that you were threatening the balance between heaven and earth, that you had to be eliminated. The council was profiting from human suffering. Ezekiel moved closer, and Lara felt her hands reach out toward the chained angel, manipulating wars, extending conflicts, harvesting souls for power. And I found proof, found records they thought they'd hidden, found the truth they'd kill to protect. I didn't know. The angel's voice cracked. They told me you were the threat, that your family harbored demons. That elimination was necessary. You didn't ask questions. Ezekiel's fingers touched the chains, and they burned. Lara felt the heat through her palms, felt Ezekiel drawing on power that came from 800 years of rage compressed into a single bloodline. You just obeyed, just like every other angel who thinks orders absolve them of responsibility for atrocity. The chains began to crack. Impossible, because celestial bindings couldn't be broken from outside. But Ezekiel wasn't outside, was speaking through a living descendant, carrying bloodline connection that gave access to bindings created specifically for Ezekiel's punishment. What are you doing? Raphael's eyes widened. You can't free me. The wards. I'm not freeing. You. Ezekiel's smile was terrible. I'm showing you what you took from me. The void shattered. Reality reformed into memory. Lara saw it through Ezekiel's eyes, felt it like it was happening now instead of 8 centuries ago. A house, modest, human style, surrounded by gardens where children played. A woman with silver wings standing in the doorway, laughing at something one of the children said. Peace, love, family, then flames, celestial fire that burned hotter than stars. The children, running, screaming, wings catching fire. The woman trying to shield them, trying to use her body as protection, failing, burning, dying while Ezekiel was held by chains of light, forced to watch, unable to help, unable to even close his eyes. And Raphael standing in the center of the inferno, expressionless, completing his mission. This is what you destroyed, Ezekiel said quietly. This is the price of your obedience. Raphael screamed. The sound wasn't audio. It was soul-deep, echoing through dimensions. The kind of scream that came from finally understanding the weight of 800 years of guilt. I didn't know, the angel sobbed. I didn't know they were innocent. I didn't know the council lied. Knowing doesn't matter anymore. Ezekiel's voice was hollow now. Empty. What's done is done. What's burned can't be unburned. What's lost stays lost. The memory faded, leaving just the void again. But you'll remember, for the rest of eternity. You'll remember their faces, their screams, their final moments, and you'll know it was you who caused it. The chains reformed, tighter than before. Raphael hung there, no longer in physical agony but something worse. Conscious guilt. Eternal awareness of atrocity committed in the name of duty. Ezekiel turned Lara's body away, and they stepped back into the corridor. The door closed behind them, with a sound like finality. Mikhail was staring at them. That was mercy. No. Ezekiel's control over Lara's voice was slipping. That was justice. Mercy would be letting him forget. Justice is making him remember forever. 6 more, Kale said quietly. 6 more council members to confront. But before they could move, alarms erupted. Sound that wasn't sound, light that wasn't light. Pure warning that resonated through every dimension of celestial holding. They know we're here, Mikhail breathed. Security breach. Enforcers are coming. How long? Kale's hand moved to a weapon Lara hadn't seen him draw. Minutes, maybe less. Mikhail's eyes were wide. We need to leave, now. No. Ezekiel forced Lara's body to move toward the next door. 6 more. I need 6 more. We don't have time. Mikhail started, but Kale interrupted. Then we make time. He positioned himself between Lara and the direction the enforcers would come from. Do what you came to do. I'll hold them off. You can't fight celestial enforcers alone, Mikhail protested. I'm not alone. Kale's eyes blazed, power rising. Infernal fire in one hand, celestial ice in the other. Nephilim at full power, no longer restraining either side. I have both heaven and hell inside me. Let's see which one they fear more. The corridor shook. Something was coming. Multiple somethings. Wings that sounded like thunder. Voices that sang judgment. Power that made reality itself bend. Lara felt Ezekiel hesitate. Felt something she'd never felt from the ancestor before. Doubt. Fear. The realization that vengeance might cost more than even 800 years of rage was worth. Kale. Lara managed to force out her own voice, breaking through Ezekiel's control for just a moment. Don't do this. Don't sacrifice yourself for revenge that isn't even yours. He looked at her, and the expression on his face made her chest ache. It's not revenge I'm fighting for anymore. His hand came up, touched her face one last time. It's you. The real you. Trapped behind centuries of someone else's pain. If confronting these souls gives you peace, gives you freedom, then it's worth it. But the contract, the torture, is inevitable either way. His smile was sad. The moment I chose to help you instead of execute you, I sealed my fate. At least this way, I get to choose what I'm damned for. And I choose this. I choose you." Inside, Lara felt something break. Not her. Ezekiel. The ancestors' rage cracking under the weight of someone choosing to suffer for another's peace. Of sacrifice given freely instead of demanded by duty. Why? Ezekiel's question came out broken. Why would you damn yourself for a human you barely know? For an ancestor's revenge? For justice that died 800 years ago? Kyle's eyes fixed on Lara's, and she saw past Ezekiel's confusion to the truth underneath. Because the moment I felt your consciousness fighting behind that possession, I recognized myself. Trapped. Aware. Helpless. And I decided no one else should have to live like that. His hand dropped. Now go. Finish this. Give yourself peace. And maybe when it's over, give her back her life. The enforcers arrived. They materialized from nothing. 7 figures in armor made of light, wings spread, swords drawn. Beautiful and terrible. Angels of judgment with orders to eliminate any threat to celestial holding. Kale met them head-on. Fire and ice erupted. Infernal and celestial power colliding in the space between. Lara watched for a heartbeat. Saw Kale fighting with everything he had. Both sides of his nature. Unleashed in perfect, terrible harmony. Saw him holding 7 enforcers at bay through sheer willpower and 5 centuries of combat experience. Saw him buying them time. Move. Mikhail grabbed Lara's arm, pulling her toward the next door. He's giving us a chance. Don't waste it. Ezekiel let Lara's body be pulled forward. Let Mikhail guide them deeper into celestial holding. But Lara felt the ancestors' attention split. Felt awareness divided between confronting the next council member and the battle happening behind them. Felt Ezekiel experiencing something that 800 years of rage hadn't prepared for. Someone choosing to suffer, so others could find peace. The next door opened. Another council member. Another confrontation. Another soul forced to face the consequences of orders followed without question. But Lara barely registered it, because all she could feel was Kale. Through that accidental bond they'd created, through the connection neither of them had asked for. She felt him fighting, felt him taking hits he could have dodged, felt him protecting the path to the doors with his body instead of his power, felt him choosing their mission over his own safety. And inside her chest, Ezekiel's rage transformed into something else, something that looked almost like redemption. The 8th door opened to a soul that wasn't chained. Commander Azariah stood in a cell that looked like a throne room, surrounded by light that should have been beautiful but felt sterile. Cold. He was the architect of the council's corruption, the one who'd orchestrated Ezekiel's family's execution, who'd ordered the cover-up that lasted 8 centuries. And he was smiling. "I wondered when you'd come," he said calmly. 800 years is a long time to hold rage. Must be exhausting. Lara felt Ezekiel surge forward, felt her body move with purpose that had waited lifetimes. But something was wrong. The anger that had driven them through 7 confrontations was fragmenting, cracking under weight of what they'd witnessed. Kyle fighting. Mikhail risking everything. Raphael's eternal guilt. 6 other council members breaking under truth they'd spent centuries trying to forget. "You destroyed everything I loved," Ezekiel said through Lara's mouth. "You erased my existence, murdered my family, and for what? To protect your prophet from human suffering? To protect order." Azariah's expression didn't change. The celestial hierarchy was crumbling. Humans were losing. Faith. Wars were ending too quickly. We needed conflict to generate souls, souls to maintain power, power to keep heaven functioning. He gestured around the cell. What's a few manipulated battles compared to cosmic balance? Cosmic balance built on corpses. Ezekiel's voice shook. Children's corpses. My children's corpses. Necessary sacrifices. Azariah moved closer. "You threatened to expose us. threatened to show humans that their prayers were being answered selectively, that their suffering was being prolonged deliberately. You would have destroyed faith itself. I would have exposed truth. Truth is overrated. The commander's smile widened. Faith built on lies still functions. Hope based on manipulation still motivates. Love cultivated through trauma still binds. His eyes fixed on Lara's. You know this, don't you? You've been manipulating your descendant for months, using her body, forcing her to commit murders while conscious, making her suffer to fuel your revenge. Inside, Lara felt Ezekiel recoil, felt the ancestor confronted with reflection of itself in the very evil it sought to punish. That's different, Ezekiel protested, but the words rang hollow. She's my blood, my vessel, my right. Is it? Azariah laughed. I used humans for cosmic order. You're using your own descendant for personal vendetta. Which is worse. At least my manipulation served a purpose beyond rage. The cell shook. Not from Ezekiel's power. From Lara's. Her consciousness, submerged for so long, finally fighting back with everything she had. Get out. Her voice broke through, fractured and raw. Get out of my body. Get out of my life. Get out. I can't, Ezekiel said, and for the first time, Lara heard desperation instead of rage. If I leave, I disappear. 800 years of existence compressed into bloodline memory. Without a host, I'm nothing. I cease. Then cease. Lara pushed harder, consciousness expanding. I'm done being your puppet. Done being used for revenge I didn't choose. Done watching you wear my skin while I scream. But justice isn't yours to take anymore. Lara felt strength she didn't know she had. Felt months of helplessness transform into fury. You've had 800 years. You've confronted 7 council members. You've made them remember, made them suffer. But it's never going to be enough, is it? Because revenge doesn't fill the hole loss leaves. It just makes it bigger. Through the bond, Lara felt Kyle. Felt him still fighting, weakening, taking damage to buy them time they were wasting on philosophical debate. Felt him choosing to suffer so she could be free. And she realized Ezekiel was doing the opposite, choosing to make her suffer so it could avoid ceasing to exist. I felt him, Lara said, voice stronger now. Felt Kale choose damnation for my freedom. Felt him fight knowing he'd lose. Felt him sacrifice everything because he believed I deserved my own life back. She pushed again, forcing Ezekiel toward the edges of her consciousness. That's what love looks like. Not using people for your goals, not justifying harm as necessary, just choosing to suffer so others don't have to. I loved my family, Ezekiel protested weakly. Everything I've done was for them. No, Mikhail's voice cut through. He'd entered the cell without Lara noticing, seraphim blade still glowing in his hand. Everything you've done was for you, for your rage, for your refusal to accept that. Sometimes atrocity happens, and the only choice is whether you become another atrocity in response. Azariah watched the confrontation with detached interest. See? Even your allies recognize the truth. You've become what you hated. Another manipulator using innocent vessels for selfish purpose. Shut up. But Ezekiel's control was slipping. Lara could feel it. Feel the ancestor's grip weakening as truth eroded rage's foundation. 800 years, Lara said quietly. 800 years of existing only for revenge. Don't you want to rest? Don't you want peace? Peace is for the dead. You are dead. Mikhail moved closer, blade ready. You've been dead for 8 centuries. This isn't life. It's haunting. Haunting your own bloodline. Haunting yourself. His ice blue eyes were compassionate now. Let go. Let her be free. Let yourself be free. If I let go, I disappear. Everything I was, everything I fought for, gone like I never existed. You did exist. Lara felt tears on her. cheeks. Hers, not Ezekiel's. You existed, you loved, you suffered, you died. And now you get to choose how your story ends. As the ancestor who destroyed his last descendant's life for revenge, or as the one who loved her enough to let her be free? The cell trembled, reality cracking as Ezekiel's existence wavered between staying and releasing. Then Kyle appeared in the doorway. He was broken. Armor cracked, bleeding from a dozen wounds, one wing manifested and shattered, the other just scar. Tissue that would never heal. But alive. Still alive. Still fighting. Lara. Her name came out hoarse. Are you still in there? I'm here. Her voice, fully her own now as Ezekiel's control fractured completely. I'm fighting. Good. Kyle stumbled forward, and Lara felt the bond between them pulse, felt his pain, his exhaustion, his absolute refusal to give up. Because I need you to know something before the enforcers break through my wards. What? I'm not completing the contract. His eyes met hers. I'm not killing you, even if it means eternal torture. Even if it means hell unmakes me piece by piece for 5,000 years. Even if it means I cease to exist. He moved closer, every step agony. You deserve to live. The real you, not possessed, not controlled, just you. Kyle, no. Already decided. His hand found hers. Already accepted. I'd rather be tortured forever knowing I chose mercy than spend eternity knowing I executed an innocent because orders said to. Inside. Lara's chest, Ezekiel shattered. Not violently. Gently. Like ice melting in spring. 800 years of rage dissolving under the weight of witnessing real sacrifice. Real love. Real choice to suffer so others could be free. I understand now, Ezekiel whispered. I understand what I lost, what I became, what I almost destroyed. The presence began pulling back, retreating to edges of Lara's consciousness. I'm sorry. For using you. For hurting you. For making you suffer for my justice. Wait. Lara felt panic. If you leave, you disappear. I know. Ezekiel's voice was peaceful now. But maybe that's okay. Maybe 800 years is long enough. Maybe it's time to stop haunting and start resting. The presence touched her consciousness one last time. Gentle. Parental. Live, child. Live the life I couldn't. Love without fear. Choose without rage. Be free. Then Ezekiel was gone. Lara gasped, fully in control of her body for the first time in months. No presence lurking. No consciousness waiting to surface. Just her. Alone in her own skin. Free. She collapsed and Kale caught her. His arms wrapped around her despite his injuries, holding her while she sobbed with relief and grief and exhaustion. It's gone, she managed. The ancestor's gone. Good. Kale's voice was rough. Then you get to live. But you... She pulled back enough to see his face. The contract. The torture. Worth it. His smile was sad, but genuine. Every second of suffering will be worth. Knowing you're free. The enforcers burst through the door. 7 of them, weapons drawn, surrounding them in a circle of judgment. Mikhail moved to stand beside them, seraphim blade ready, even though they all knew it was hopeless. The lead enforcer's voice echoed with divine authority. Kyle, Nephilim of the infernal contracts, you are charged with failing to execute a target, breaking into celestial holding, and attacking divine enforcers. Sentence is immediate eternal torture. I know. Kyle didn't move from Lara's side. I accept. Wait. Azariah's voice cut through. The commander had been watching everything with clinical interest. Now he stepped forward. I invoke right of testimony. The enforcers paused. Commander Azariah, you have no authority here. I have the authority of 8 centuries of imprisonment and observation. Azariah's eyes were calculating. I witnessed something unprecedented. A Nephilim choosing mercy over contract obligation. An ancestral spirit choosing cessation over revenge. a human choosing to fight her own possession. He looked at the lead enforcer. This isn't standard contract violation. This is evolution. Evolution is not clemency. No, but pattern recognition is evidence. Azariah gestured at Lara. The girl was innocent, possessed. The execution was unjust. And the Nephilim recognized it, choosing mercy, despite knowing consequences. His smile was sharp. If heaven punishes mercy toward the innocent, what does that say about divine justice? The silence stretched. Lara felt Kale tense beside her, hope and disbelief warring. You would defend the one who invaded your cell? The enforcer asked. I would speak truth. Azariah's expression was unreadable. Something I stopped doing 800 years ago when I prioritized order over justice. Maybe it's time to remember what justice actually looks like. The lead enforcer studied them all. Then, impossibly, lowered his weapon. The human is free. The possession has ended. The targets were confronted. The invasion, while illegal, served truth. He looked at Kale. The Nephilim showed mercy, rare, unprecedented, but not punishable by eternal torture. The contract will be voided, with prejudice. The enforcer's voice was firm. Heaven will not punish mercy toward the innocent. Not today. Lara felt Kale's entire body sag with relief. Felt through the bond his disbelief, his gratitude, his overwhelming exhaustion finally allowed to surface. You're free, she whispered. We're both free. Yeah. His arms tightened around her. We are. Mikhail laughed, sharp and disbelieving. 3 outcasts broke into celestial holding, confronted 8 souls, triggered every alarm in heaven, and walked away free. That's either miracle or apocalypse. Maybe both, Lara said. She looked at Kale, at this being who'd chosen damnation for her freedom, who'd fought angels to buy her time, who'd believed she was worth saving when she didn't believe it herself. What do we do now? Kale's eyes met hers, amber and red swirling together. Both sides of his nature finally balanced instead of warring. We live, we choose. We find that third option. His hand cupped her face. Together, she agreed. And somewhere in the spaces between dimensions, an ancestor's spirit finally found peace. Not in revenge, not in justice, but in witnessing love powerful enough to choose suffering over causing harm. 800 years of rage, dissolved by one Nephilim's choice to be merciful. One human's choice to fight for freedom. One seraph's choice to speak truth. And 2 souls finding each other in the spaces where heaven and hell both feared to tread. In the end, Lara and Kale discovered what most of us spend our lives searching for. That freedom isn't given, it's chosen. That love isn't about possession, it's about liberation. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let go of rage that feels justified, sacrifice that feels impossible, or control that feels necessary. Ezekiel carried 800 years of righteous anger, and it took witnessing true sacrifice to realize that revenge was just another prison. Kale spent 5 centuries following orders to avoid pain, only to learn that choosing to suffer for someone else's freedom was the first truly free choice he'd ever made. And Lara, trapped in her own body, discovered that fighting for your own existence, even when it seems hopeless, is the most powerful act of all. So ask yourself this. If you were Lara, conscious but helpless while something else controlled your body, would you keep fighting? If you were Kale, facing eternal torture for showing mercy to an innocent, would you still choose compassion over obedience? If you were Ezekiel, would you have the strength to let go of justified rage and choose peace instead? These aren't just questions for supernatural beings in impossible situations. These are questions we face every day in smaller ways. Do we choose mercy or judgment? Do we hold on to pain or release it? Do we control others or free them? Do we follow orders that feel wrong or risk everything to do what's right? The most profound truth in this story is simple. We are not defined by what's done to us, but by what we choose to do next. Lara was possessed, but never stopped fighting. Kyle was bound by contracts, but chose to break them. Ezekiel was consumed by rage, but found peace in release. And all of them discovered that the third option, the one that seems impossible, is always there if you're brave enough to create it. If this story moved you, if it made you think about your own choices, your own prisons, your own chances at freedom, then share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a like if you believe mercy is stronger than judgment. Subscribe if you want more stories that challenge you to choose courage over comfort. Because the world needs more people willing to fight for the third option. More people willing to sacrifice for another's freedom. More people willing to prove that even in darkness, hope survives.